Today, we see if gamers enjoyed surviving against 60-million-year-old creatures, or did the beach bobs get eaten too much by raptors? This is gonna surprise you. Let's find out if anyone played Ark Survival Evolved. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am BD, and this is Did Anyone Play? A series where we investigate, analyze, and determine the truth about how much gamers have actually played a game like Ark Survival Evolved. How do we do this? We use trophy and achievement milestones within games and then compare those results to an ever-growing database to evaluate and rank games compared to the rest of the industry. Using objective data and statistical comparisons, we can draw conclusions. We aren't reviewing the game in a traditional sense. Our goal is to provide analysis that can be better used to understand player preference while ignoring game sales and hype to ensure we see reality as it truly is. Please drop a like or a sub to the channel if you want more of these types of videos. We're just starting out, so anything you can do is very much appreciated, and a quick spoiler warning as we may be talking about some elements of late game progression. So let's find out if anyone actually played Ark on Xbox, PS4, and Steam. Remember that all percentages we'll be talking about here come from the total number of players that have actually launched and or played the game, not bought the game. So these results are a full reflection on how gamers played Ark Survival Evolved. Before we get into it today, I'd like to detail a few curiosities with Ark Survival Evolved that may impact how you look at this data. In Ark, cheats or admin commands can be used to obtain all trophies or achievements. That means that not all percentages you will see here are obtained through legitimate means. Also, Ark has been on Game Pass for an extended period of time, so we'll likely see that factor in for the Xbox results. Finally, there is no setting that limits how to obtain milestones, so if a player chooses PvP, PvE, or single player, there is no difference on how any milestones can be received. Now let's get into the fun. The first milestone that players will likely reach is called Your First Day. This milestone is achieved once a player survives their first day and night cycle without dying. So how many players made it to this very early milestone for Ark? On Xbox, 35.9% of players got to this first milestone. For PS4, 59.5%, and for Steam, it was 55.9%. So let's pause here to evaluate. Nobody's off to a great start here. Ark is struggling massively out of the gate. Even with any settings and protections provided, our best scenario is that on PS4 we lost 40% of players before they could survive a single day-night cycle. The Xbox result is outright tragic, as 65% of players never met this milestone. Here's a quick look in graph form, and I've put the database average up there. All platforms are well below the average. You can see that Steam and PS4 are close to each other, but significantly below the average. Xbox is almost double those two in terms of being below the average. There's no good story to be found here. Player retention is awful for Ark, even at this early point in the game. I will mention here that we also did look at a milestone for the first tame, but the percentages didn't vary much. This is the highest achieved milestone. So what is Ark Survival Evolved? It's an action-adventure survival game where you play as a stranded individual who must survive against the elements, dinosaurs, natural hazards, and possibly even other hostile players. It's set in different open maps that allow players to build, craft, upgrade, and explore. A large part of the allure of Ark is to tame dinosaurs so you can ride them and use them in battle. It was developed and published by Studio Wildcard. Ark Survival Evolved released out of early access for all platforms in August of 2017. The second milestone all players would likely reach is called Rex Rider. This is awarded after a player sits on the saddle of a tame T-Rex. The Rex is iconic, so it seems like a given that players would want to do this. So for Steam, 29% of players sat on a Rex. PS4 is at 29.6%, and Xbox is at 16.8%. At this point, even our best platforms have lost 70% of players, and Xbox is now near 85% gone. This is rough. It's always good to understand the competition a game was up against when it launched. What was happening around August 29th of 2017 in the gaming world? Well, titles like Yakuza Kiwami, Madden NFL 18, and Sonic Mania came out around this time. Looking at Google Trends here, we see that Ark Survival Evolved in blue was very strong at the time of release. Madden 18 is close around the launch, but trails off while Ark stays strong. So hype was big for Ark, but I think we can say the competition was average. We like to pick a mid-game milestone for our third marker. For Ark, we chose Map Maker. This is awarded after completing 80% or more of the minimap. This is usually done after a player obtains a flying creature and can traverse the world much easier. How many players are left at this point in the game? For Xbox, it's 6.7%. On PS4, we have 12%, and finally for Steam, 15.5% are left. Steam is holding on to a few more players than the rest of the platforms, but it's still not a great story for Ark. The retention is way below the rest of the industry, even at milestone 3, and remember, this is still with the opportunity for a player to have every cheat available to them to complete these milestones. How did ARK do with critics? Well, Metacritic for PlayStation has it at a 69 out of 100. For Xbox, it was also 69 out of 100. And for Steam, the reviews show very positive recent and all-time with over 500,000 reviews. These are decent to good reviews, and you can see that major review outlets scored ARK alright with an average around 61. The reception was mixed for the game overall, but players seemed to enjoy it. Our most important milestone is our fourth one. This is for completing the main objective and what we will ultimately base our final score on. It definitely shows how many players finished the game and truly played ARK. This milestone is Survival Evolved, and it's awarded for defeating all 3 bosses in the game. Once a player defeats the Broodmother, the Megapithecus, and the Dragon, this milestone is met. Where does ARK end up on the different platforms? On Xbox, 3.3% of players completed the game. For Steam, it was 8.7%, and for PS4, 5.3% did just that. Let's pause here since we've reached the end of the game. We want to check the percentage of players that quit each platform after making it through the first milestone, but failing to reach game completion. Here, all platforms are doing worse than a database average. PS4 is the worst, but only by the slimmest margins over Xbox. Steam is better, but still well out of line compared to the industry average. Finally, to get a feel for how the completion is treated this game, the rare milestone 5 chosen for ARK is called Master Zoologist. This milestone can be achieved if the player can tame all the domesticatable creatures on ARK. This is a massively difficult one to do naturally, so we might expect that cheats or admin commands were used in most cases to achieve this milestone. For Xbox, we see that 0.2% of players reach this milestone, for PS4 it was 0.4%, and for Steam, 3.2% of players did it. Now let's see the full picture. Here are the raw milestones for our platforms for ARK Survival Evolved, and we have added the database averages for each milestone in gray for comparison purposes. Let's get into it. For ARK, we do see a large initial drop at milestone 1. PlayStation and Steam are fairly in line with each other, but the Xbox drop is huge. This was likely due to Game Pass. As we progress to milestone 2 and even 3, we see a steady decline. From milestone 3 to 4, there's a flattening of the curve, but by then so few players are left there isn't much to gather from this. Steam comes out on top for milestone 4 and keeps that position to milestone 5. So this is our final tally for ARK Survival Evolved milestones. But now let's see how the game stacks up against all other games in our database and find out if anyone truly played ARK. We use milestone 4 as our ultimate ranking target, so here are the results for each platform for milestone 4 once again. It's time to reveal the final rank ARK has in our database. Here we go. Steam is at a 1 out of 10, Xbox is at a 0 out of 10, and PlayStation 4 is a 0 out of 10. Hardly anyone played ARK on Steam, and no one played ARK on Xbox or PS4. This is a truly tragic result and fairly baffling, as we know ARK has had huge player numbers over the course of time, but there is no mistaking that players simply do not engage with a vast majority of what ARK has to offer, and not only that, but couldn't even be bothered to cheat their way to success. ARK on Xbox has the sad honor of making it into our top 10 least played games. So those are the scores, but let's see if we can tease out some other observations by looking at these results in different ways. It's time for the deep dive. Let's start with progressive player loss. Each milestone shows how many total players have stopped playing the game at that particular point. Here we see that throughout the game, all the way to milestone 5, Xbox leads in losses, while PlayStation loses the least early. Steam does better for milestone 3 and beyond. Moving on, we can look at milestone player retention. This calculation only takes into account the player population loss as a percentage compared to the previous milestone. Xbox struggled early on milestone 1, but as you can see in the chart, all milestones from 1 to 4 are exceptionally weak, where the player retention is poor throughout the game. And while Xbox is worst on every milestone except for milestone 4, where PlayStation is the worst, no platform looks good here. Steam bucks the trend in milestone 5 with significantly better numbers, but this could be due to admin commands being more commonly used on that platform than others. How about completionists? How did the rarest milestones shake out in the different platforms? Here we see that Steam takes nearly 84% of the result, with PlayStation at 10 and Xbox taking up the rest. Again, I feel this is likely due to Steam players being more comfortable with admin commands, as this seems a bit out of line compared to the other data we've seen for other games. Finally, we check on early versus late game retention. When you read a chart like this, the best performers are further away from the center of the circle. Early game, Steam and PS4 are leading, with Xbox falling behind. For the end game, we actually see that Steam is in the outright lead with Xbox and PS4 lagging behind. And finally, for completionists, we see Steam well ahead of the other platforms. It's not close. Let's take one final look at all the platforms and their milestone 4 results, but this time we show the full percent rank within our database. This is to give you a detailed view of how rankings have played out. Use this data as you will. Let's wrap this up. So what are our major takeaways from all the data? Ark is perplexing. It did not retain players well at all. Steam shows hardly anyone played it there, but on PS4 and Xbox, no one played this game to the end. And frankly, we were generous, as there is a further milestone where you actually get a cutscene, and we might consider that the true ending of Ark, but those results are even worse. To see nearly 50% player loss at each milestone is pretty tragic. We know that Ark has had a lot of players play the game, but so few reach some pretty simple milestones. Are gamers playing Ark in such an odd way as to purposely be avoiding getting trophies or achievements? I doubt that very much. And consider that gamers could use admin cheats to achieve or help achieve every one of these milestones, and even then, that does not help improve the situation. It's a truly amazingly sad result. Hardly anyone has experienced Ark's later game content, the huge boss fights, the Ascension Cave, and even the fight with the Overseer. It begs the question, should devs have spent more time on the earlier core game and far less on the late game activities? Could devs engage players more with better performance or game mechanics? Something was clearly lacking, even with dinosaurs in the mix. And we can't leave out the clear Game Pass effect on Xbox. Even with Ark massively underperforming across all platforms, Ark still stands out on Xbox because of Game Pass and produces a result that puts this game in our top 10 least played games of all time right now. Not an award you want to have. Ark is a weird game. Survival with dinosaurs, being able to tame them, ride them, conquer the land, build bases, fight huge bosses, and challenge other tribes. Ark seems to have it all. But with all that, the numbers show us that hardly any gamer truly played Ark and experienced it the way the developers intended. I can honestly say that I have personally made it through all of these milestones, but even with that direct experience, I can't understand why so few gamers did the same or even got through their first creature tame or first day and night without dying. Those that love the Ark experience will certainly find these results confusing, but it does speak volumes that if Wildcard was able to do a better job focusing on player retention in the early stages, they might have had an even more successful game on their hands. Hopefully, this data can help inform even better outcomes in the future, and I think we need to look at Ark Survival Ascended next to see how gamers engaged with a troubled remaster of the original. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to do all the YouTube support stuff. I'd love to read any comments you have down below. What conclusions do you all take from this data? And of course, feel free to suggest the next game we should look at to determine if anyone played it. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.